Hello again. The Practical Animal channel is dedicated to the public understanding of the animal industry, aiming to cover both conservation and hunting, giving students and career breakers tips that may just give you the edge you need to land that dream animal job. To meet today's guest, we go to British Columbia, Canada. Kevin Bustard is a black bear hunter and an expert on the species in the wild. He talks to me today about the North American model of wildlife conservation. In this video, we'll be talking candidly and objectively about hunting and its role as part of an integrated wildlife management model that applies to the continent of North America. For students of English as a foreign language, this video will be interesting because you will hear two distinct accents. Conservation is not for the squeamish, and neither is this programme.
Kevin, what's your best bear fact, please?
How bears smell, the aroma that comes from a black bear. It's so unexpected. I've got a lot of great facts, but I've been thinking about this one. It's definitely how they smell. I hear people say I could smell a bear in the area, and I wonder what they're talking about. I think maybe they're bullshitting, pardon my language. I think maybe they've never smelled a bear. And I think people think, oh, a bear must smell terrible. A bear smells amazing. I've been around a lot of bears and they smell great. There's a distinct aroma. It's not just like mushroom in the forest floor. There's a distinct aroma and it's very pleasant. It's hard to describe. It's very faint. You could, if you had a lot of experience, smell a bear and know what you were smelling, but you would have to have done it a lot. And that's just it. They smell wonderful. They're the best smelling animal in the woods.
That's brilliant. I love that. What is the black bear hunting season in British Columbia, Canada? When does it start? When does it end?
So it starts April 1st and it goes until June 31st in parts of BC. That's when they're emerging from their dens. Then again, we have a fall season that starts in September, and that runs again throughout October. I can't remember. It might be November 1st. But by that time, most of the bears in the high country have already denned up. So the season is split. You can choose to take a spring bear and you can choose to take a fall bear. You could take two spring bears, and that's just great. But many people choose to take a fall bear because they take advantage of that really valuable fat. And by that time, they've packed on a lot of fat.
Kevin, I've read something during my researches about the North American wildlife management model, which is partially based on hunting. Does that apply to Canada as well?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Today, because of regulated hunting, we have an abundance of every huntable species on the landscape. And biologists determine the number of animals upon the landscape, what the land's carrying capacity is. They'll say, okay, we're going to allow for 3% to be taken off of the landscape through regulated hunting. Most of us hunters today, we love the regulations because it almost guarantees that our grandkids will have the same opportunities that we do.
How does hunting benefit conservation?
A lot of money goes into conservation through the purchasing of licenses. Percentage of every dollar spent, whether you're buying a rifle or a boat or an ATV, goes into conservation. Almost any hunter is going to belong to conservation groups, but I belong to the Wild Sheep Society, Hunters and Anglers of BC. I belong to probably 5 or 6 organizations that count sheep. Conservation has to involve the management of the species numbers. Biologists determine an amount of animals that can be taken, and we keep that number right within the landscape. Else, the country would be overpopulated in deer, and they'd be getting struck on the highways, or they'd be taken out by disease. Conservation and hunting go hand in hand, and the best conservationists, ironically, are hunters and fishermen. We're the ones interested in the animals. Not You can be interested in the animals emotionally and think you're doing something great for a species just because you're invested emotionally. This is not an emotional issue. This is an issue of science, land management, species management, and in our case with hunters, the allotment of hunting tags and species licenses.
And what is a hunting tag, Kevin?
So in British Columbia, you work through the RCMP to get a firearms license. And that's one thing, and that involves training, the purchasing of licenses, a waiting period. Then you go through a conservation course, and you learn the basics of wildlife conservation. So after passing that course, you submit your application to another governing body, and they will issue a general hunting license. The general hunting license makes you essentially a resident hunter in BC, but it only allows you to take upland game birds and migratory game birds, rabbits, small game. For every large game, you have to buy a separate species license. So in my possession throughout the year, I might have upwards of 10 licenses to do what I want to do, to hunt elk, moose, mule deer, black-tailed deer, white-tailed deer, black bears, etc.
Kevin, you mentioned that there's training involved. Is that training after you've applied for the firearms license?
So you're receiving training throughout the course itself. You have to pass a course of training before you can apply. Then the second part is in control of the Chief Firearms Officer's office within the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Licensed firearm owners in Canada are, what would you say, they're just great people. They're monitored every day. The computer takes a look at my name and whether I have a charge against me, a criminal charge against me. We're the closest watched group of people almost in Canada. I would never do anything to jeopardize my hunting heritage or my right to my privilege of carrying a firearm in the forest, because that privilege could disappear.
Kevin, what firearms do you use?
I've got a lot of guns. You go through the course and you think, oh, I'm going to buy me a gun, and you end up buying a lot. And yeah, it's a fascination. It's craftsmanship, ballistics. There's just so much that goes into it. You use a center fire rifle as per the regulation in British Columbia to harvest big game animals. And you use a center fire rifle of sufficient bullet weight. And you do that because our goal is to cleanly dispatch an animal. And you'd like to do that by shooting them through both lungs, maybe shooting them through both lungs and the heart. You want that animal to die a proper death, a quick death. You don't want to be chasing an animal through the woods and unnecessarily harming an animal. So for me, I use the old venerable 308 Winchester with a bullet weight of 165 grains. It's works great. There are a lot of modern cartridges, but my kids use a 308. I use a 308. My wife uses a 6.5 Creedmoor. But
Kevin, what preparations do you have to make prior to a black bear hunt?
I got to make a lot of preparations because we've hunted with our children since they were babies, and we hunt in the mountains of British Columbia. So I've got to think about avalanches, exposure, getting cut off on a road because trees have fallen across the road or a road was taken out by a flash flood. So I think about everything. I've got 500 pounds of tools that I carry with me so that I can get myself out of a jam. We carry satellite communication devices in case anything happens. When we go into the forest on a black bear hunt, we're pretty much self-sufficient. If something happened and we had to spend a month back there, we'd be okay. So jacks to get your vehicle out of a tough spot, generator that you can fire up, all weather, all season tents, wood stoves, heaters. Yeah, I pull a trailer along behind me, and we could pretty much live in the bush if we had to.
Wow, so hunters are highly practical people.
Well, they have to be. British Columbia's wilderness is 100% unforgiving. It's not concerned about you, and it's trying to kill you. Not only are the cougars and the grizzlies potentially able to take you out, but there's just a host of hazards. Most of our province is uninhabited for good reason because it's almost impenetrable. And when hunters go into the woods, they're doing what no one else does. When we go into the woods, we're sneaking through the woods, trying not to make a sound. Whereas most people, they know they're going into grizzly country. They're going to wear bells around their ankles. They're going to sing and talk to let the bears know they're coming so they don't surprise one. We're actually purposefully going in stealthily. So there's a lot to think about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And safety is everything for me. Safety is number one. Then number two is finding a way and means of locating a bear so that we can harvest it for food. That involves e-scouting, using GPS maps, looking at aspects of land. For example, in the springtime, you're looking at south-facing mountain slopes with something that's going to green up quickly. You're looking for grass. If you can locate grass, and if you can locate dandelions, you'll find the bears.
Kevin, how do you stalk black bears?
In British Columbia, that's the only way we're allowed to hunt them. We can't bait them. You glass across canyons with binoculars. So I have a pair of 12 power binoculars that I put on a tripod, and I sit and I look at the terrain and I look for what's greenest in the spring, and I start looking. And sometimes looking is you're looking maybe for hours. And once you locate a bear, you find a means of getting close to them. Then in the fall, you're doing the very same thing, only you're looking into the land that contains berries. And that's how you find them. And then the stalking part is very difficult. You're playing the wind to your advantage because a black bear is going to smell you. A black bear can smell you from a half a mile away. If the wind is behind you, you're going to get busted and you'll never see them.
Wow.
Pardon me.
Kevin, having shot the bear, How do you field dress a carcass?
That's the most important part. You've got to do it immediately. Not only does it lighten the load, but it gets the carcass cooling down quickly. You lay it downhill a little bit on a slope, and you take a knife and you cut a ring around its anus. So you put that knife blade in around the circumference of the anus, and you cut away that connective tissue that holds that tube in place. And then you carefully get a hold of it and you pull its anus out of its body. You tie a knot in it. And now you're ready for the next step. So the next step is opening up its body from its sternum all the way down to its butthole. And then you can start to move those lower entrails, the digestive system, out. And there's a wall past the digestive system, a wall of tissue. You cut that away, and that's where the living business is, the lungs, the heart, the liver. And you reach up past that with your knife, cut away the trachea. Once you have the trachea in your hand, you start pulling towards you. And as you're pulling towards you, you're releasing tension held in place by connective tissue. So you're pulling and cutting. And by the time you reach the bottom, it's just one pull, everything lands beside you, including the anus. You don't want to get feces in your meat, so that just follows the whole thing. That process probably takes 3 minutes. But for us, we keep the liver. We have to, by law, leave the gallbladder at the site because there's a black market trade on it. So we're not allowed to even keep it for our own use. It has to be left at the site. So we keep the liver, the kidneys, the heart, almost every part of the bear. My family and I have found a way of using. We probably use 95% of the bear. The liver is a great delicacy, so that's one of the highest prized parts of the bear and one of the first things that we eat. So yeah, that's the first part of it, is what I call dumping its groceries on the ground and taking the offal, putting them in game bags, and then my wife does the skinning. She's a trained taxidermist. She won't let me skin anything anymore. She does all that.
Kevin, how do you inspect the carcass for parasites?
One of the things that you'll see in our bears in British Columbia is what's called filarial worms, and they're a tiny little 1-inch long white worm, and you almost expect to see those. So inspection for me takes place before I shoot an animal. I'm looking for an animal that exhibits behaviors that are right, and I'm looking for an animal that has a lustrous coat and has obvious signs of health. And if I've found that animal, I can expect to find maybe a half a dozen of these little white worms in its body, and pretty much that's all you'll see. They start to evacuate the tissue as soon as the host is perished. They start to find their way out, and you'll see a few of them, and you discard them on the ground, or if they're at home, you discard them. I don't even know that they're alive at that point. The other thing is trichinella, and that is a parasite that you can't see, and any of our predators might have that. We love to eat cougar, and cougar often has trichinosis, and that's why we cook our meat to 140 degrees temperature and above. Measure it with a meat thermometer so that that's dealt with. Yeah. Yeah. Whenever we harvest a bear in British Columbia, they're almost always the epitome of health, and those are the only two things that really occur for us.
Oh,
Their meat is beautiful. Their meat is beautiful. It's just like beef. If I cooked you a dish, you wouldn't know it from beef.
Kevin, can you describe or list some black bear hunting do's and don'ts?
Do go into the woods believing that you are equipped and that you're the baddest thing in the woods. Don't go into the woods scared. You have to own the woods, and you have to be able to get in and get out safely. Do be selective. So don't kill a sow. Don't kill a female bear. One boar will mate maybe with several sows. Take out male bears. Be selective. Take out a trophy bear. Why not? You're gonna get more meat off of a trophy bear, and you're matching your wits with a worthwhile opponent or adversary. You're challenging yourself. Do have a sense of mercy. So kill that animal quickly. Don't prolong suffering. Don't waste meat. That's why you're there. You're taking a life, and that's a serious business. When you're taking a life, that's serious. And these are a noble creature. So don't waste their meat. Honor their meat by caring for it and making high quality table fare. When we sit around our table, we eat like kings and we tell stories. And my kid will say, "What are we eating?" "Oh, we're eating Isaac's elk, or we're eating Alex's bear." And we have so many stories and memories associated with what it took to get that meat out of the forest and to have that great rack of ribs on our table. Yeah, that's some do's or don'ts.
What is the attitude locally in British Columbia, Kevin, towards black bear hunting? I mean, do the vast majority of people understand what it's all about, or is there a lot of ill feeling towards it?
Hunting is always under attack. People have an emotional connection to animals. Understandably, I do. I have an emotional attachment to animals. Every time I see a bear, it's like a miracle has occurred. And I've seen thousands of bears. But every time I go out, try to find a bear, locate one and see one, it's like it's like stepping into another dimension. It's wonderful. And I would never want to see them depleted upon the landscape. But I understand that hunting is necessary to keep that number of animals healthy on the landscape. People don't understand that. And people will try to ruin your hunts. If they know you're hunting, they'll try to ruin your hunts. They might try to disable your car. They might disable your truck in the backcountry, which could endanger your own life. But people are against hunting. It's just the way it is. We're a hunting family. We don't really understand that. We're friendly to people going into the woods, and if people know what we're about, we almost have to be stealthy in this day and age to do what we do, because people are utterly shocked. My wife and I came upon some people who were not prepared to be in the backcountry. They were in avalanche country. They were not prepared. They didn't have the right tires on their vehicle, and they had 2 flat tires. They were just so unprepared. And we helped them. We got their tires fixed. We got them on their way. And these 2 young ladies said, "What are you guys doing back here?" Because they were back exploring a hot springs that they'd heard about. They had flip-flops and bathing suits, 70 miles from the nearest town. And we said, "Well, we're black bear hunters." And they didn't want anything more to do with us. We were their good Samaritans. But after that, No, they didn't want anything more to do with us. Yeah, it's just the way it is.
Kevin, what advice can you offer somebody wanting to get into black bear hunting, either as a pastime to feed the family, or possibly become an outfitter?
I would advise anyone anywhere, if there is a legal way, if there's a means for someone to begin participating in the hunting lifestyle, I would advise anyone, get into it. It's a freedom offered to you, and it's a really wonderful way to connect with life. With black bears in particular, not many people hunt black bears in British Columbia. Most people hunt elk and moose, and they think that the meat's probably not good. More and more people are beginning to do it. My family and I, we live almost exclusively on black bears because we can't always be guaranteed a moose, but we can always go out and harvest a few black bears. Not just hunting them, not just outfitting for them, but it's a interesting field. Work as a field technician for a biologist. There's always something that can be done for the species. It's an iconic species. It's a successful species, and they're just one of my favorite animals.
Kevin, you are a black bear hunter in British Columbia, Canada. Thank you very much for being on the Practical Animal channel. Kevin Bustard.
It's my privilege. Thank you, John. Bye for now.
Yeah, we are now. You can put the two together.
All right, buddy boy. Give me 5.
Hey, Alex, what do you say about your first bear?
Good boy. Great job. Now we got to keep this tag.